You've probably experienced this before. The person who has hurt you time and time again, someone who's been cold, dismissive, even cruel with your emotions, suddenly becomes gentle and sweet. They start calling you by affectionate nicknames, bringing you flowers, doing chores around the house, or showing a level of care and attention they never offered before. And in that moment, you might find yourself wondering, have they finally changed? Could this be a fresh start? But hold off on the hope. That sudden kindness isn't always a sign of sincere remorse. More often, it's a covert and dangerous tactic. When a narcissist suddenly becomes sweet after a period of withdrawal, manipulation, or emotional damage, it's usually not because they've finally realized your worth. More likely, they're trying to build up goodwill to compensate for something awful they've already done or something they're about to do. These good deeds aren't coming from a place of love or natural kindness, but from fear of being exposed, guilt that they don't know how to process, or a desire to keep you under control. They haven't changed. They're simply recharging, preparing for the next round of manipulation. And you, if you're not careful, might find yourself caught once again in the cycle of hope, disappointment, and pain. Keep watching, because we're about to uncover something few people dare to say out loud. Sudden sweetness from a narcissist isn't proof of change, it's a warning sign. There is nothing more alarming than when a narcissist suddenly becomes gentle. After a period of coldness, criticism, manipulation, or silent treatment, they reappear with a warm smile, affectionate gestures, and sweet words. They ask how you are as if they've never hurt you. They show up at your door with flowers, send messages saying "I miss you," and act like they're stepping into a brand new romance. But in truth, this isn't remorse. It's not an awakening. It's simply a costume change, more polished, more convincing, and more dangerous. A narcissist can't maintain a consistent personality because they lack a true emotional core. Instead, they operate through adaptation, observing what you need, where your vulnerabilities lie, and then stepping into the role you're most likely to fall for. The moment they sense you're pulling away, tired, doubtful, or considering leaving, that's when they switch characters. From distant to attentive, from indifferent to devoted, with one goal only, to pull you back into their sphere of control. What makes this behavior so deceptive is how convincing it is. They know exactly what moves you. They remember the last time you truly smiled, what music you love, what little phrases you say when you're happy. And they'll repeat it all not because they love you, but because they know it's your emotional language. They won't offer a clear apology because that would be admitting fault. Instead, they make it up to you with small gestures, cooking breakfast, giving you a shoulder rub, calling every night, buying that thing you casually mentioned weeks ago. Their kindness doesn't come from the heart, it comes from calculation. Beneath that sudden gentleness lies a simple motive: power. They can't stand the feeling of losing control. Your emotional independence sends them into panic. They're not used to a supply that thinks, sets boundaries, and stays clear-eyed. So they need to soften you with just the right dose of sweetness, like a weapon dipped in honey. And no, this isn't impulsive behavior. It follows a pattern. After every episode of abuse comes a wave of kindness. After every breakdown they cause, they stage a revival of affection. Their kindness never lasts, but it lasts just long enough for you to start hoping again. And that's what they're aiming for. To make you believe, maybe this time it'll be different. Even though they know deep down nothing has changed, except the way they've adjusted their mask to fit this next act. To outsiders, they may seem considerate, as if they're learning from their mistakes. But you, the one living through it, sense something is off. Your intuition whispers, even if there's no concrete proof. That's because you're watching the same old script being performed with new lines. They are not remorseful, they're just playing the role of someone who is. And the danger lies in this. They don't need to believe what they say. They only need you to believe it. But a narcissist's deceit doesn't stop at sudden sweetness. It goes further, becoming a calculated, systematic strategy, moral point collecting. A kind of conscience bank not used to withdraw money, but to cash in forgiveness, sympathy, and more chances to mistreat you without facing consequences. And this is when you enter a psychological maze where every good deed has an agenda, and kindness is no longer pure. Narcissists understand deeply how human psychology tends to remember positive gestures, especially in moments of emotional chaos. Their kindness isn't an expression of genuine love, it's an investment. A voucher to redeem later, when their lies, betrayals, or manipulations are exposed. Every bouquet of flowers, every sweet gesture, every act of helpfulness is a moment of conscience points being deposited into a system only they control. You'll notice they often become nice after they've just done something wrong or right before they're about to. Maybe they lied to you, contacted an ex, misused joint finances, or simply spoke poorly about you behind your back. But instead of apologizing, they'll give you a gift, plan a surprise date night, or quietly clean the house. No explanations, just actions. And later they'll use those very actions against you. Even if I made a mistake, you can't deny all the good I've done for you, right? At first glance, it sounds reasonable, but it's a psychological trap. Because suddenly you're on the defensive. If you express your anger, you're labeled ungrateful. If you share how you really feel, you're accused of only seeing the negative. Meanwhile, the one who actually caused harm stand on the moral high ground, supported by the credits they intentionally built up in your mind. And just like that, you become the one in emotional debt. You hesitate to be angry because you don't want to seem petty. You hesitate to leave because you feel haunted by those rare moments of tenderness. You start telling yourself, everyone makes mistakes, at least they're trying, or maybe I'm being too harsh. But the truth is, they planned your forgiveness before you even knew you were hurt. This strategy goes beyond simple manipulation. It's a form of psychological control, where they implant in you a sense of emotional obligation. They don't need to yell. They don't need to blame you directly. All they have to do is behave just good enough, and you'll do the rest, forgive, overlook, and stay. Worse yet, they know exactly how to trigger your happy memories. Every time you try to pull away, they'll remind you of something special. Remember your birthday. Remember what I did for you. As if one good deed can erase a whole string of harmful behaviors. They turn kindness into currency. And just like that, you feel obligated to give them another chance. But it doesn't stop there. Once they've drained all their conscience credit, they return to their old behavior only to restart the cycle. Kindness, abuse, redemption, more abuse. Each time you become a little more confused, a little more drained, and more emotionally attached, not because of love, but because of the emotional dependency they've wired into your brain. One of the most dangerous tactics a narcissist uses is weaponizing kindness, turning seemingly kind gestures into a shield that protects their harmful behaviors. They don't do good because they are kind, they do it because they need a cover. A thick moral mask to blur the truth and make you question your own intuition. They know this well. People tend to believe what they see, and when someone behaves nicely, we often assume they are inherently good. But to a narcissist, that's exactly the loophole to exploit. They'll act incredibly caring in front of others while behind closed doors. They subject you to punishing silence, subtle criticism, and prolonged emotional coldness. When you try to confide in someone about your pain, the common reaction is, but she seems like such a nice person. And just like that, you're not only isolated, but you also start to doubt your own reality. Narcissists are masterful at constructing a moral image. They donate to charity, help neighbors, give gifts to friends, take care of pets. They make sure people witness their kindness but carefully hide the cruelty they unleash on you in private. And if you ever speak out, they'll weaponize their good deeds against you. After everything I've done for her, and she's still not satisfied. This tactic is frighteningly effective because it traps you in a cycle of constant inner conflict. On one hand, you feel hurt, dismissed, and emotionally suffocated. On the other hand, you feel guilty for thinking badly about someone who just bought you flowers, cooked for you, or threw you an elaborate birthday celebration. And so, you slip into emotional paralysis, unsure what's real and what's not, afraid to act in case you're the one who's wrong. They turn gratitude into chains, an invisible yet heavy moral debt. You begin to feel like you've lost the right to be angry, because good people shouldn't be accused of harm. And before you know it, you're locked in a manipulative relationship you can't even name. Worse still, when you start to resist asking questions, expressing real emotions, or demanding fairness, they switch roles instantly. From abuser to victim. I did everything for her, and this is how she repays me. That sentence cuts like a blade in reverse, turning you, the actual victim, into the villain. They don't need to scream. They don't need to threaten. A single line, a fake wounded glance, and suddenly you feel like the cruel one. That's when they win. Not because you believe them, but because you've stopped believing yourself. There is nothing that makes a person easier to control than the feeling of gratitude, and narcissists understand this instinctively. They don't need to be psychological masterminds to realize that when someone owes you emotionally, they are more likely to forgive, compromise, and most dangerously, stay silent. That's why, after every cycle of abuse, there's always a gift, a surprise gesture, a tender act, an apology that seems sincere. But none of it is meant to heal, it's meant to blur the lines between right and wrong. Narcissists don't apologize to apologize. They apologize to end the argument. And once you feel better, they know they still hold power. This is when the victim starts to enter a state of emotional paralysis, conditioned not to fully trust their own feelings. Because when the brain is placed in a setting full of contradictions, it chooses survival over truth. If believing they're a good person helps you feel less pain, less confusion, less loss, then that's what your mind will cling to. Even as your heart screams, something is not right. You begin to rationalize their behavior with softer explanations. Maybe they're just stressed. Maybe I disappointed them. They're not always like this. Each time they hurt you, it's a cut. But each time they become kind again, it's a pink bandage. And because those cuts don't bleed in obvious ways, you assume they're not serious. Until one day you look back and realize your entire emotional body has been bandaged by behaviors you once brushed off as just mood swings. The real danger lies here. Narcissists don't need you to believe they're good. They only need you to doubt that they're bad. As long as you hesitate, as long as you hold back from declaring who they truly are, they have a path back in. And they will use every drop of that hesitation to prolong the relationship and keep you under their influence. Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance, when two opposing truths exist in your mind at the same time, and you can't decide which one to believe. In a relationship with a narcissist, this happens constantly. They insult you, but also take you out to romantic dinners. They give you the silent treatment, then whisper, "I love you." They betray you, but also buy you gifts. And so your brain starts to confuse the person who hurts you with the one trying to make you happy. Eventually, you find yourself unable to leave, not because you love them, but because you're no longer sure you hate them. They continue giving you just enough kindness. Not too much to raise suspicion. Not too little to make you walk away. Just enough to keep you hoping. And if you're truly honest with yourself, you'll realize you're not in a loving relationship. You're trapped in a personal PR campaign, where you are the only audience. And that is the most dangerous turning point in the entire cycle of manipulation. When you're no longer sure whether this person is good or bad, right or wrong, loving or abusive, you've stepped out of objective reality. You're now living in a version of reality reconstructed by the narcissist, built through the subtle seeds of doubt they've planted in every word, every gesture, every unexpected act of kindness that came before. They don't need to scream in your face that you're wrong. They just need to plant one simple question. Are you sure it happened the way you think it did? And that's enough. Your brain begins to turn inward. Instead of analyzing their behavior, you start analyzing your emotions. Instead of asking, "Why did they do that?" you begin to wonder, "Am I being too sensitive?" And the moment you start doubting your own instincts, they no longer need to control you because you'll do it yourself. This is when the technique of gaslighting reaches its full power. It's no longer direct manipulation through blame, guilt, or attack. It's the distortion of reality through doubt. It makes you think, maybe I misunderstood what they said. Maybe that action didn't mean harm. Maybe I'm just overly sensitive from past wounds. And when you start defending them in your own mind, you unknowingly become an accomplice in your own harm. No one needs to chain you anymore. You'll adjust your feelings, edit your memories, and modify your behavior, all to maintain a relationship with someone you haven't yet admitted is slowly destroying you. This is the uniquely toxic mechanism of narcissistic relationships. You're not bound by chains, you're bound by hope, by carefully timed fragments of beautiful memories dropped in just the right moment. Every time they hurt you, it's a punch. But every time they're suddenly sweet again, it's a painkiller. And after enough cycles, you can no longer tell the difference between hurt and relief. All that remains is a psychological loop. Hurt, soothe, doubt, forgive, repeat. But it doesn't stop there. Once they sense your confusion, they push you into self-blame. You begin saying things like, "I shouldn't have reacted so strongly. Maybe I made things worse. They're trying their best. Maybe I'm just not being patient enough." And so, a new cycle begins. Not only are you forgiving them, you're punishing yourself for ever daring to question them. This is one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation because it doesn't require violence. It only takes someone smart enough, patient enough, and sweet enough at the right moments. If you've ever experienced the sudden kindness of a narcissist, you'll understand that their sweetness does not come from love. It comes from strategy, a cold calculation wrapped in a warm disguise. It's not a sign of change, it's just a new phase in the manipulation cycle. They give you flowers so you forget the knives. They give you affection so you erase the memory of pain. They give you a new version of themselves so you keep hoping that this is their real self, not the one you've seen before. But the cruelest part is this. They don't do it for you. They do it to serve themselves, to soothe their guilt, to regain control, to keep you within their emotional reach. as a source they can drain and starve whenever it suits them. So if you're in a relationship where kindness shows up like a strange breeze, with no true apology, no lasting change, no accountability, be cautious. Sit with yourself and ask, am I being loved or am I being manipulated? Am I being healed or am I being lulled? Am I truly being seen or is my trust simply being used? Because sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop believing in soulless gestures of kindness and start listening to your own soul, which has never once lied to you.